All right, good evening. Calling this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. November 20th, 2024. If everybody can please take their seats.
Me lo dieron casi, casi. Así, chinga, también. Get out of here. Get out of here. Ya, porque nosotros no fue como que así.
I forgot my glasses.
Sí,
Yo de lejos. De cerca estoy bien. All right, Mr. Kent. Do you have the roll call list?
Yes, Chairman. I apologize, let me grab that for you real quick.
Thank you. Roll call. Mónica Salinas,
Here.
Carlos Fernández, Jesús Olivares, J.D. González, Orfelio Quintanilla, Luis Hinojosa,
Here.
Rick Laurel, present, Arturo Dominguez,
Here.
Emilio Richer, David Puig,
Present.
Tony Arce, Rodolfo Garza Benavides, Jorge Cavazos,
Here.
Jerry Hinojosa, and Gerardo Maldonado. We still have, I think we have quorum. Pledge of allegiance. Everybody please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any citizens' comments?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kent Richard, interim director, we do not have any public citizen comments at this time.
All right. Everybody was emailed the minutes from the last meeting from October 16th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Just here. Just for the record, Rodolfo Garza is in attendance. So first item of discussion is update regarding expansion of the World Trade Bridge and any other matters incident there too.
Yes, again, Chairman, members of the committee, we have Mr. Sid Milkey with SEA that will be giving a presentation.
Thank you. Would this also be in combination of the Columbia Bridge? No, right?
We have a separate proposal.
Separate proposal, okay. Those
presentation.
are back-to-back items, so you can go ahead and go
Well,
through.
actually, Melissa and Balta from LJA are the team, primary consultant for that project. SEA is the primary consultant for World Trade.
World
Bridge.
Trade.
We
All
work
right.
for them on Columbia, so.
All right, great.
Good evening, Chairman, committee members. My name is Sid Milkey. I'm with Structural Engineering Associates. This is a presentation to you about World Trade Bridge expansion project. It's been a while since we made this presentation. We've had a lot of activity. A lot of work has been accomplished.
Good.
This is a picture, aerial photo of World Trade Bridge before the fast lane. You can see traffic was backed up. Most of the primary lanes were open and operating. And then last year, SEA and the city of Laredo did a DAP project to create fast lanes, 4 fast lanes coming off of 1 dedicated lane on the bridge. That project opened in February 2023. It takes all the fast traffic out of this group of traffic, takes them completely out of the main port of entry and dumps them right on the I-69W. It's been a very good project. It's working very well for CBP right now. They're estimating about 20% of the total trucks right now use fast lane, and we're hoping that when they bring the CBP office here to Laredo and they can get many more shippers enrolled in the CTPAT program,
If I can, if you can excuse me, just for the record, J.D. Gonzalez is present. Go ahead, sorry.
You're welcome. Thank you. So what we're proposing to do and what our presidential permit has been issued for is expanding World Trade Bridge. The main expansion is to build a brand new 8-lane bridge northbound connecting the Aduanas area, the northbound Aduanas area directly with the primary area for CBP right now. This will be for all northbound commercial vehicles except for fast traffic. In addition to this, we'll add 2 lanes on the upstream side of the existing bridge, which will bring the total lane count on the existing bridge to 10. That'll be 8 lanes southbound into Mexico directly from the toll plaza to the commercial primary. And that will leave 2 lanes on the exterior of the downstream side for fast. That'll dump directly into the new fast facility. So that's what we're moving forward with, this plan of action.
Great.
This is just a concept of looking into Mexico, the new 8-lane bridge. It'll be all dedicated northbound traffic. It will be 8 lanes, plus it will be an additional shoulder on the upstream side for security vehicles, for first responders, whatever, to get access to the bridge itself. This is a conceptual of what the existing bridge will look like in the future, with 8 lanes heading southbound and the 2 lanes coming into the United States being dedicated to fast, and hopefully fast/UCP once we get CBP gets their issues worked out at World Trade. Scope and the cost of the project. I mentioned the scope of the project is going to add from 8 lanes existing total to 18 lanes. 10 lanes northbound, 8 lanes southbound. Southbound lanes on the existing bridge will remain dedicated. 2 lanes on the existing bridge will be fast lanes, of course, going into the 4 fast primaries. That facility is expandable to 6. 8 new northbound lanes on the new bridge, direct access. That alignment for that bridge is lined up to go right down the middle of the 4 MEP buildings that were built, the units that were built there. So we think we can take those 8 lanes and split them very evenly into those 4 MEP units. And then, let's see, it eliminates the S-curve that exists now, so you're going to have a full 8 lanes coming into 12, 14 primaries eventually. It'll go to 4 of the MEPs and then branch out to as many primaries as CBP will open. The benefit of going through the MEPs is they'll have gone through they'll be x-rayed before they get to the primary. So CBP will have the option to have the computers do that analysis, and many more trucks. 100% will be inspected by non-invasive inspection technology. So 100% of the trucks can go out. The only thing they'll have to go through that big loop that exists today is anything that's agricultural, anything where they find anomalies, any other special cargo. So we're hoping to increase the throughput dramatically at World Trade Bridge. Okay, progress so far. We did get our presidential permit this year, May 31st. NEPA clearance, we started it last year. We did not wait for the presidential permit. We're about 50% complete. We've been having not continuous, but regular binational meetings with our sponsor on the Mexican side, the state of Tamaulipas. Conceptual engineering and all the surveying has been done. We've had continuing meetings with the adjacent property owners, mainly the southern side where we're going to need to buy a piece of land for the bridge. The PS&E are the plans for the construction. Development of those is ongoing. We had our kickoff meeting right after the 4th of July this year. We made a 30% submittal to TxDOT for review and comment in mid-July. We just turned in what's called our preliminary bridge layout review document, which goes to the bridge division in Austin. We got that turned in last week. Our 60% set of submittals is going to be due in December, and then the rest of the PS&E schedule is shown there, which will take us through September of next year. At that point, we'll have a set of plans, specs, and an estimate updated through all that time to use to go to bids once we get all the final approvals.
You don't see any issues with the purchase of the land that you just mentioned?
No, sir, we don't see any issues at all.
On the U.S. side?
On the U.S. side. On the Mexican side, I don't believe they have to purchase any land. I think If they have, they've already worked out those details. The state told us they thought they had worked out all the details that they need for that piece there. We don't need any more land to widen the existing bridge. The city has enough land to widen the existing bridge. We will be asking that landowner that's on the north side for an easement for construction purposes in the river bottom only. We won't be getting access to that construction through that housing development at all. We just want a strip of land for construction there.
Sir,
Yes.
if you go back one, all those, the last lines that you mentioned, 2024, are those dates correct? Or is it, 2025.
No, those should be 2025. I corrected that on a previous version and I didn't get it. Those are
Okay,
all,
so-
12/16/2024 is the last 2024. The other dates that you see there, you are correct. Those are 2025 dates.
okay, so even the kickoff meeting, right?
The kickoff meeting was this
Okay,
year. We
All
kicked
right.
it off this year
Yeah.
in July of 2024. So, kickoff meeting, PSNE, PBLR, and the 60% submittal, are all
Okay.
2024.
Yeah, only the last three should have 25.
Yes, sir. The last three are 2025.
So it actually will be dirt?
Well, I'm gonna show you the rest of the timeline.
Okay, we're almost there.
I think
Another
the
year.
environmental test
I
is
tell
still-
everybody the easiest part of any of these international projects is the design and the construction. If we can get to that point, those are the easy parts. So the easy part is the PSNE, designing it. The hard part is getting all the permits on board and ready to go. So as I mentioned, this is the whole project. This is presidential permit was issued this year in into May. Our NEPA clearance, we're anticipating it, we started in 2023 in June. We anticipate receiving a FONSI in September. We have September 2, that's a target date. We have no idea how close it's gonna be for that, but we hope it'll be in September. That's the NEPA document, the environmental clearance, that says they found no significant impact. And that triggers some follow-up permitting that still has to be done. And we're targeting September 2025 through February of 2026 for that.
Nothing has been found?
Well, we
In
knew
the
the mussels
environment.
were there and we found the mussels.
You found them?
There were some endangered mussels, the Texas hornshell mussel. We knew coming into the project when we signed our contract with the city that these mussels were known to be in the Rio Grande River all the way from El Paso down to, we don't know how far south. And so we were able to put into our NEPA clearance document the studies needed to investigate, to document, and to put a plan of action into place and get it approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife for these Texas hornshell mussels. So the first thing after we did when we started our NEPA clearance process was develop a plan of action for the investigation. When we sent divers into the river, and I guess they go in there and they feel around in the mud and find the mussels, they have to check them out because there was like 20 different species of mussels in the river there. And they did find some of the endangered species. I think there were 10 live specimens in the river underneath the bridge area. So those were documented, that information was documented. The report was just finalized and sent to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife reviewer. That report says, okay, here's where they are, here's our plan of action. We can actually go in and with more divers and find what we can find and relocate those, and this is where we plan to relocate them. That happens like 6 months before construction only. But that plan has to be reviewed and approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We were told when we submitted our report a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that we're number 14 in line for review. So that's something that we're working on trying to get it resolved. But we knew it was going to take a long time. That's always been the critical path of our project because of those endangered mussels. Everything else seems to be moving pretty well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think there'll be any potential delays dealing with the GSA or no?
No, not GSA. GSA's been on board with us. Something I don't have on here is we have what we call an interagency working group that's set up of Federal Highways, GSA, CBP, our consulting firm, and the City of Laredo. And we meet once a month virtually now And we discuss these same topics. TxDOT is a member. Fish and Wildlife is not a member. Coast Guard has been asked to join us. IBWC, SELA has been asked to join us, and they do join us. And the purpose is so that they're all familiar with where we're going, how we're going with the project, where the NEPA clearance is, where the design is, and any issues that that agency may have. We can bring them up, work them out, and keep moving forward. So they're on board. They've been with us from day one. So with the FONSI next summer, next September, that turns loose of our final permitting. And we have to get permits that are triggered by the FONSI. We can't get them before Coast Guard permit. Actually, in order, we have to submit to Corps of Engineers because we're planning to put some soil in there to construct some vents in the river. We have to get that permit. We have to get a water quality permit now from TCEQ. And then once those are approved, we can get our Coast Guard permit approved. Simultaneously, we'll be working with IBWC to get final plan approval and get their license agreement issued. In order to go to construction, we have to have the license agreement in place from IBWC, and we also have to have our Coast Guard permit. So those two things are what will trigger actually a notice to proceed for the contractor. So those have to be targeted and aligned in a sequence of events next in 2026. So after the final permitting, say we hope to get our Coast Guard permit in February of 2026. We hope to have a bid opening probably in March of 2026. At that time, we have our permits in place. The bids are reviewed and approved by the city. It can be awarded. Council approves award. If we have a good project to award, then council will award and we'll issue a notice to proceed to construct. We're anticipating the construction phase May 2026 through December of 2027. That's a little longer than you might think because what we've done is we're saying we're going to build the new northbound bridge, all 8 lanes, both U.S. and Mexico, get traffic moved to that new bridge. All of the northbound non-fast traffic will be moved to that new bridge. That will allow us then to move traffic on the existing bridge and take a couple lanes out of service so that we can go and widen that bridge safely and without impeding any flow. That will actually give us more lanes than we have today. So that's why it's a little bit longer than just a year. But that should bring us to the end of 2027, and that's our target for cutting the ribbon and opening both bridges, having them fully operational.
We look forward to that.
Yes, sir. I do too, personally.
Number 27.
So anyway, any more questions?
I have a question here, Mr. Milkey. There was a meeting a few weeks ago with DAP and a few other people on the new proposed 8-lane bridge tying into the GSA property. Have y'all made a determination yet if that's going to be through a DAP agreement, or is it going to be an easement agreement, or that has not been discussed at this time?
No, it has been discussed, and the reason we had that meeting 2 weeks ago was preliminary discussions that we had with GSA and with CBP. The area, well, I guess it's not up there.
There you go.
The area that we're going to tie into right here, this is federal property right here. So at a minimum, we were going to have to do some construction in federal property. That would have required typically either a license agreement to allow the city to go in there and do the work. Under a typical license agreement, the city does the maintenance. And obviously, it doesn't make sense for the city to maintain this section of pavement or this area. They'll keep the bridge. The bridge will be the city's. So what we determined was that a DAP project, a donation acceptance program project, would be required because we're going to build this inside the federal property with their agreement, understanding. There'll be an agreement, a DAP agreement between the city and the feds. It will be donated to the feds at the end. They'll accept it and they'll do the maintenance for the long term. So it is a DAP project. We're working on the application as we speak right now. Our target for submitting the preliminary application to DAP is probably going to be right after the first of the year, maybe right before Christmas if we can get it. We're working on the application now. So That's gonna be simultaneous. They'll be looking over our shoulder also as we're finishing the construction plans, but we don't see an issue, with that. Everybody's been on board. They know what we're doing. It's just a matter of, it has to be we have to do that because of the federal laws that exist, and it is federal property.
If I may, Chairman, at this time, there was a question last meeting on who were members of the DAP program. And I do have the names tonight. Jared Casperson, he's the branch chief of DAP. Shirley Drake, she's a program manager. Ryan Flanagan is a director of the Alternative Funding Program. Then you have Maria Diaz, and then with GSA, we have Charlie Hart and Chris Asendua.
They'll do it, yeah.
So I wanted to mention those names because there was a question on that,
Yeah, I
and I
think-
did not have
I
those
think
names.
Mr. Dominguez, you asked that question last time, didn't you? No, whoever it was, but
That question was asked by Mr. Olivares,
okay.
so I wanted to present it at this meeting.
He just messaged me that he wasn't gonna be able to attend today, so. All right.
May I check?
Yes, you, of course.
Sid, has there been any discussion of adding more primary booths to that new bridge?
To the World Trade,
To this particular new bridge?
as far as the primary lanes?
More
No.
primary lanes?
No, we haven't talked about any new primary lanes. There has been, CBP has requested that the two additional expansions for the fast lane be, the program be started, because that's gonna have to be a DAP project as well. That's gonna be probably, I don't know if it's gonna be a minor, it probably will be a major project. And so that's gonna take longer to go to develop, so. But essentially, you can take the plans, when we built the first floor, use those same,
I mean, you're an engineer, you agree that we're building more lanes, but we're working with the same amount of primary booths? We're gonna process the same amount?
I don't know, I think you're gonna process another, the key,
That was gonna be my next question. Is there projections of the growth and how much it would?
we have made some very preliminary projections, but the key, right now, traffic coming off of the existing bridge goes down this S curve, which essentially it's down to 2 lanes, from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. Or actually now Mexico's striped the existing bridge, so there's only 2 northbound lanes on the Mexican side. There's the fast lane that remains. Traffic comes around this S curve, and then they spread out into the primaries. And before the MEPs were installed, all of the non-invasive inspection for all the vehicles was done back under this canopy. So the primary inspectors, along with whatever computer assistance they had in place, they made the determination who needed to go through the queue for non-invasive inspection technology. And if you've ever been out there and seen the wad of trucks right in this area, they're crossing each other, they're jockeying for position. They line up all the way from right over here, all the way around the curve and get in line for that existing MEP. That also, this is the agricultural area here. This is the invasive, where they unload trucks and take them apart if they find anything in here. So the key to making this work is the installation of the 4 MEPs. All trucks then, once we open this bridge and all 4 MEPs are fully operational, and they've got CBP has their operational technology down, all of the trucks coming across northbound will be inspected by non-intrusive, by X-ray, gamma ray, whatever ray it is. And that technology allows the truck to pass through. It doesn't have to stop. We don't have to get the drivers out. They'll be passing through at 10 miles an hour. They'll be passing through, and then they'll be going from 4 NII inspection facilities to 12 or 14 lanes. So they'll be spreading out. What that also does, though, is it allows CBP the time from when they're identified. We'll have the pre-primary here for the trucks to be, take pictures of them, take license plates of them, make sure they're the right width. They'll be then assigned to one of the 4 MEPs. They'll pass through. They'll be re-identified here when they get to the primary. By that time, all of that inspection, all that X-ray, all those pictures will have been analyzed probably by a computer and maybe a human being also. So what that means is the time spent at the primary will be cut down. Also, with having all of the trucks inspected with this technology, their confidence level goes way up. So right now, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30% of the trucks actually are allowed to pass directly out of the port of entry. We're hoping that by 100% of them passing through the NII technology before they even get to the primary, that's gonna go to 60%. We'll be able to allow to pass right on through. And the only trucks that will have to go to the dock will be agricultural, things where they find things, anomalies in the trailers, things of that nature. So that processing speed increase is going to basically potentially eliminate the need for additional primary booths.
When they turned the ones they have right now, the line in 3 hours was like all the way to Monterrey. It was pretty far. When they turned them on like for 3 hours, they had to shut it down.
I understand they're having issues, yes, getting all that working properly.
They have
We
2
do have
years.
4 lanes of bypass too, in case it doesn't. But between now and the end of 2027, we're hoping the technology will be either refined to the point where it's operating as planned or whatever CBP decides to do.
None of this new construction affects the U-turn,
No, sir.
what they're doing right now, right?
You made reference to UCP. Are they anticipating doing any additional work on the booth, or, because it's gonna have 2 officers there, Mexican and American, are they?
The fast lane booths were designed with the UCP in mind. They are actually elongated booths that are here today. And they have 2 workstations in them, one for a CBP officer and one for a DONAS officer, or a NUM officer. And they were set up for that purpose. I understand there's some legal, I'm just gonna say some,
Terminology.
Jargon?
They're working on that.
not jargon, no, there's some legal issues that the CBP has to get through to have the ANAM inspector and the CBP inspector in the same building with each other. And it has to do with union rules, I believe.
Our union.
On our side.
Contamination of culture, man.
I think so. I don't know the details, and don't quote me on that, but right now, they're not operating that way. When we designed the booths, we spent a lot of time working with CBP, trying to figure out how to make those booths combined joint use booths for that purpose, so that the way they're designed right now, the ANAM inspector will be the first one at the front, and then right behind that, like 8 feet behind that, is another window, another transaction window with another operational facility for the CBP inspector to sit there. And right now, I think it's taking them a minute and a half for CBP to process a truck through there, so it would be equally as fast if we have both ANAM for UCP traffic and fast lane.
Okay.
The existing booths, we haven't planned or talked with anybody about trying to implement that, because right now, it's only been used with the fast technology at Columbia as well.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Sid, have you ever heard of a control tower in there?
I've heard that talk about it, yes.
And that they would eliminate the exit booths?
Well, that we have no exit booths on the
No,
fast
on
lane.
the other side.
On the fast lane.
Down here, on the downstream side.
On the real import lot.
I've heard it talk about it. I've not seen any, or not heard any real firm talk about it. The issue is, if MEP pans out as a technology and CBP can implement it and have 100% NII security on all the vehicles coming through, I think they can do a lot as far as what happens to those vehicles, funneling them to a specific 1 or 2 or 3 exit control booths to where it's minimal time. If
That
any.
would be more efficient too.
I would think so. I mean, if we can orient them. The other thing they want to do here is eliminate what, you can't see this picture. It's called the Bat Cave. It's that big structure that trucks can drive under.
The
They
blue
want to take that down. That'll give us another 3 or 4 lanes of passage through there that they don't have today, so that trucks can be assigned lanes. Some can be allowed to go straight through, some can be allowed, told to go back around, and I think the efficiency can be increased a significant amount.
That was my question, I think. Once you get past those 16 lanes, how many lanes do they go onto? And right now, is it two? I understand that it's only 2 lanes before they
There's-
kind of fan out to the exit booths.
There's 1 lane, 2 lanes under the Bat Cave. There's 1 lane as a bypass to the Bat Cave, and I think there's 2 lanes that are in this area right in here. There's 2 lanes here. There's bypass. They don't let trailers park right here now. This is another bypass to come through here, so there may be 5 backs at the most. And most of those are oriented to getting the vehicles into the flow for the NII. They're not oriented toward passing vehicles directly out of the port of entry.
And we understand that the advantage of removing the Bat Cave was, to your point, to expand the number of.
That's the whole purpose, is right in here now you can.
I guess that's the next project.
That is another
We
project.
talked about that early in the year, right? That was proposed.
Yes, we have talked with Budget Department, and that is on our listing of several other items that, the city is looking to see where we can find the money to remove that Bat Cave, to give more flow of trucks leaving that area.
Yeah, because it opens up, then it narrows down, then it opens up.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right.
How about, are you making any accommodations for any wide loads or just strictly to Columbia?
Wide loads up to a certain amount can still pass through. I mean, they're having to come across the existing bridge. I can't remember what width it's limited to, like 14 feet? 16? 14 feet can pass through here. 14 feet will still pass through here. As far as I know, they can come off the bridge. They'll have to be bypassed through around the MEPs. So they'll have to have special processing anyway. But right now, the limiting for that is this over width lane that's existing today.
One last question has there been any discussion with regards to the exit booths to make those unmanned or add some more that are unmanned where they can just scan their manifest through and if it's.
To add any boost to what's there now,
Exit gates.
is gonna require a significant investment in, I don't know if you go right outside the port of entry, there's a creek right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna have to do a lot of engineering to narrow that creek down, buy land, put fill there, and add boost. So, I think technology, my personal opinion is technology can allow CBP to implement other things, and if we could define lanes for those trucks that are clear to go out into those lanes, I think that's gonna increase the throughput.
But would it make any sense to build them inside? Like there's a lot of parking space.
There's a lot of dead land inside that gate.
Right, that where the security shack is, right there at the entrance point.
You could
To build inward instead of.
The problem, now we're talking about, okay, now we gotta go around. We just gained, when I presented before, I don't know if the loop had been opened or I-69W had been opened in its construction, because at one time, when we first talked about this project, we had 1 lane exit coming out of the port of entry. All the trucks had to go across that way in motion scale, and there were barriers there on the road on the loop. So when TxDOT widened the loop to a full 3 lanes of travel plus shoulders, that was removed. So now we tripled the capacity coming out of I-69W. Now, because we can still handle more traffic, but when we get traffic coming faster out of those exit control booths, now we're gonna push the problem further down the road to I-69W as well, because they're still going to 3 lanes on I-69 or the loop.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I appreciate your time, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Next up is the update regarding the expansion of World Trade Bridge, or Columbia Solidarity Bridge, and any other matters incident there too.
Oops, sorry, you're good. Good evening, Melissa Montemayor with LJ Engineering. I'm a senior VP with LJA and one of the deputy project managers on this project. And Sid is the other deputy project manager, and actually so is Baltasar Avila with LJA that's with me. And so we're gonna go over this, this bridge expansion at Columbia Solidarity to clarify. Now, we're at a different stage than World Trade. So, you know, World Trade, the presentation that Sid just gave you, is post-permit, presidential permit. And so we're now switching to a project that is pre-presidential permit issuance. So the good news is that we did submit our presidential permit application last Thursday, November the 14th. So it's with the Department of State. They did verify that they did receive it. So all good is good and well. And so, you know, we're looking forward to their review, and we're looking forward to receiving that permit next year, early next year. So LJA and our sub-consultants, one of which is SCA, we were selected by the city of Laredo for the scope that you see here in front of you, and basically starting with stakeholder coordination, which, as you know, is crucial, that we indicate in our presidential permit application that we've had the stakeholder coordination, both, you know, here in the U.S., with, you know, locally, and then with our, you know, federal counterparts like GSA and CBP, and of course on a binational front with various stakeholders in Mexico as well. Environmental constraints, we have to look at that in a very general overview fashion, not the full NEPA studies that we will need to do post-permit issuance. This is just kind of a general constraints, what we anticipate are kind of standouts. And then, you know, looking at existing traffic and trade data, complementary enhancement projects is something that we're going to be going over with you a little bit later in the presentation. These are projects that don't need a presidential permit, but that will enhance the operations at the port of entry. Currently, they're unfunded, but they're projects that the city of Laredo, ourselves, and CBP have talked about, that CBP has focused on, and that we feel are definitely improvements to the port of entry, and that'll help facilitate the movement of vehicles and trucks through the port of entry. Of course, you know, we have the conceptual bridge plan of what we plan to do to expand Columbia Solidarity, and of course the presidential permit application. And a big part of the application is telling the story about the purpose and need of the project. That's what we have to convey to the reviewers, our federal reviewers in DC. Why do we need this expansion? And a part of that story is talking about Port Laredo's monthly trade. It's in millions. You'll see here that in 2023, the freight crossing the Port Laredo was higher in value than any other port in the U.S. at $320 billion. I don't have to tell that to you. You're the experts. You've seen these numbers, but this is the type of information that we place in the application. And then, of course, in May of 2024, we talked about Laredo's total trade share that was, you know, outpacing the previous year. That kind of goes in tune with, you see this upward growth in the value of trade throughout the years. You'll see a downward spike. That's the COVID year. But other than that, it just keeps on growing and growing. A wonderful trend to see in terms of talking about the need here in Laredo. And then we talked about commercial motor vehicle crossings, northbound, same thing. Look at the trend, everything going up throughout the years. And then we talked about the increase at 96.7 since the year 2000. Another wonderful stat that we talked about in the application. We talked about the 7% of all trade by value in the U.S. moving through the Port of Laredo. We talked about the demand of freight crossing is increasing in both directions constantly. The Strait of Nuevo Leon has been a wonderful partner that we've been coordinating with on this project since early this summer, since we came on board to prepare the presidential permit application. And they have been investing. There's a lot of development on their side, so they're preparing as well for this expansion. The cross-border traffic, you know, a large proportion of expected cross-border traffic growth is going to be able to cross at Laredo Columbia Solidarity. And of course, that the project is both regionally and nationally significant. in those, talking about regional connectivity, you know, it's that real estate quote, location, 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 and that's why Laredo is such a key economic driver here at the Port of Laredo, and it's our location. You know, we've got, you know, key interstate roadways that lead to the interior of the United States, and of course roadways that lead to the interior of Mexico. I'm retired from the Texas Department of Transportation. I know some of you from my past career, and I would always say at TxDOT, if we have a bottleneck here in Laredo, someone in Michigan just lost their job. It's the same story here. If we have a bottleneck here at Laredo, Columbia, somebody in North United States just lost their job. Same thing from interior Mexico. That's how crucial we are at this port of at Columbia Solidarity. Let me go further down. We also talked about commercial truck projections. We're looking at an average of a 3% growth throughout the years. Again, significant projections of truck traffic throughout, you know, looking at around 2012 through 2055. Southbound commercial truck projections, again, another significant increase in southbound commercial projections increasing. Passenger vehicles, we also looked at passenger vehicle growth throughout the years, and again, averaging 3% growth through 2050. Same thing for passenger vehicles southbound. Again, you know, what we want to see is that upward projection and be able to portray that to our reviewers. It's exactly what we wanted to see in those projections. When we look at the current configuration here at Columbia Solidarity, this is a September 24 average daily volume. Personal vehicles crossing there at about 13,800. Commercial right at about 8,000. And here's just like a photo of Columbia Solidarity. The current configuration right now, there's 8 lanes, 4 southbound lanes, POV and commercial, 4 northbound lanes, that's commercial vehicles, fast lane, and a Century/POV. There's 4 booths for POVs and 8 booths for commercial vehicles. The next slide just kind of shows a typical section of what I just talked about. And here is our proposed expansion. So what you see here are 2 separate bridge structures. They will each be 4 lanes in each direction. So that will carry 4 northbound lanes, 4 additional southbound lanes to carry commercial motor vehicles. The red is bridge structure. The blue is roadway structure. The estimate that you see here to the left, now the estimate is for the U.S. side only, not the total structure that you see here. It's only for the U.S. side, which about 2/3, let's say, it's a very rough average, but let's say about 2/3 of the structure is the U.S. side. So the bridge deck, we're estimating at about $16.9 million. The roadway and embankment, which is the blue on the U.S. side, at about $2.5 million. We've estimated about 20% contingency at about 3.8, mobilization at $2.3 million. And so the total estimated construction cost, 25.6. If we take that conservatively with inflation to an FY27 construction cost, which is when we expect to let the project for bids, that'll be about $28.8 million.
So then, the expansion is 2 bridges, but
2 separate structures.
what
yes.
happens to the current bridge?
That remains in place. And so, you know, here's where we have the existing structure. And here is the configuration of vehicles on the existing structure. And then the 2 new structures will carry an extra 4 lanes on each structure, 4 commercial motor vehicles, 1 southbound, 1 northbound. And I talked about, you know, how important stakeholder coordination is, and for the feds to see that we did coordinate with our stakeholders. I think we've done a good job of that, and, you know, the city of Laredo has been there with us the entire way, meeting with CBP. The Department of State was here a few weeks ago. That was a real treat because they did a whole tour of the Texas-Mexico border starting in Del Rio. They came all the way down here to Laredo, so we were able to host them and talk about the project, you know, face to face. So I think that's a big plus. We met with the DAP assistant program people. They were here in Laredo. We got to meet with them at Laredo College. They went over kind of the new DAP rules with us, so we got, you know, kind of a first-hand overview of the new DAP rules. Of course, you know, with Webb County, the RMA. Like I mentioned, we've been meeting with Nuevo Leon very often. The governor from Nuevo Leon, Governor Garcia, came to Nuevo Leon. We got to meet with him and give a presentation. And, you know, he was very optimistic about the project. And, you know, he's optimistic about the project on their side as well. So, you know, it's a great coming together of both sides, Mexico and the U.S., wanting this same project equally. The Secretaria de Economía, ANAM, the Consulado General, SILA, you know, everybody, you know, we've been with multiple meetings with these entities, and, you know, again, a lot of support from everyone. On the timeline, right now, we have submitted the presidential permit application, so we're in this, there's a glare on my side of the screen, so we're November right here on this quarter here on the front part of this of the schedule. Once we get the permit, which would be, you know, worst case scenario in 5, at the beginning of this number 5 here, we'll be able to start our NEPA work, the National Environmental Policy Act, which is the environmental studies that are required. We're anticipating that to take about 2 years at that worst case scenario. At the same time, we'll start the schematic design work. So that's good that we'll be able to start that, you know, at the same time. We'll be also at the tail end of that start off our final permitting, and then we anticipate going to bid and our construction phase November 27, and then end construction around September 29, and open to traffic. That's a worst case scenario. We feel that we can tighten up that schedule and open earlier, but that's a worst case scenario, open to traffic September of 2029.
You had mentioned that you started the NEPA application earlier. You anticipated it, right? And went ahead and did it early. Is it not possible to do that here?
It is. If we get the application permitted earlier than May, then we can start NEPA before that.
But you have to file before December, according to the bill,
So we submitted our application,
to get,
yeah, last week.
take advantage of the Ted Cruz bill.
The NDAA,
Yeah.
are you talking about
That
the
was the
National
reason. That was the reason.
Defense Authorization Act?
That was the reason he was here,
Yes.
no? Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's 120 days for them to have to review. You know, can they issue that permit earlier? You know, they could if they reviewed it earlier. They don't have to.
With the change of administration, do you see anything holding it back? Or pushing it forward?
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
think it would be more
it's
pushing it forward,
possible.
right?
It's very possible. You know, remember that the previous Trump presidency had a different executive order, and that streamlined, you know, the process. So I would assume that's possible.
Notice that you had a lot of dialogue with a lot of individuals. Have you been approached by the Green Trade Corridor as well to involve in this or not?
So, yeah, the city, there was a presentation here at City Hall from Green Corridors and city staff, and I was present for that meeting.
Are they involved in any of this, or is this strictly?
No, sir, this is strictly City of Laredo, yes.
May I?
Yes.
Is there funding for this?
The city plans to use their bond funds for this project. They are open to grant funding, and, you know, we as a firm are gonna be looking for grants, but that's just to offset. But the city does have plans to use their bond funding to finance the construction of the project. But we're gonna do our due diligence for the city of Laredo, to keep our eyes open for grants and earmarks that are available, just to, try to save the city as much money as we can. LJA, we've been very successful in bringing other grants and earmarks to Laredo. So we're gonna try to do the same for this project as well.
Is that not part of any of the bond committee that you're on?
No.
A different bond?
No.
Do you anticipate any federal funding from Henry Cuellar? You reached out to him as well, or?
We have not requested anything, but the project will be eligible for federal funding. So just a couple of weeks ago, the Webb County City of Laredo Regional Ability Authority did take action to allocate $1 million of Category 12 Strategic Partnership Funds to the Columbia Solidarity Project. And so that action was taken just a couple of weeks ago. What that does is it federalizes this project so that when we do get the permit, we can start the NEPA process and get that federal review. So there is already $1 million that's been officially allocated to the project. Now, that project, the $1 million, will need to be included in TxDOT's UTP, their 10-year plan. That gets approved in August of 2025. Then, we'll have an advanced funding agreement that goes along with that. And then we'll put that into the Laredo MPO's TIP. And then, of course, that gets approved in the statewide TIP, the STIP.
World
So
Trade
there's
is,
a process.
World Trade is fully funded, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If I may,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
thank you. These costs, these are just a projected cost. I mean, things may change, of course.
They're
They
projected
probably are.
cost. We use a fairly innovative program called Concept Station that gives us a little bit more of an accuracy when we estimate these. It's almost like it's like a light schematic phase estimate, if you will.
But we're not tied in. There could be some other,
Oh, of course.
I mean,
of
there's
course.
gonna be, 2 years from now, it's
Right,
gonna
if,
be.
something happens with
Yeah.
inflation that
Well,
we can't
I
predict.
think
of
she
course.
mentioned that there was a inflation already, that the estimated cost is $3 million difference. That's the
Right.
inflation.
$3 million
It's
not.
probably very conservative.
Inflation
Very.
is built in and a 20% contingency.
Yeah.
That 3.8, there's a 20% contingency built in as well. And then, of course, you heard me talk about those complementary projects at the port of entry, those that don't necessarily need a presidential permit for those projects to move forward. They are unfunded, but what we did at LJA, we studied these projects. We met with CBP. We thought of maybe perhaps some projects on our own that would enhance operations at the port of entry. And we developed a study of what these projects would be and what they would look like, so that we could deliver these to the city of Laredo, so they would have a listing of these projects, and kind of have a wish list, if you will, and for CBP to have a wish list of these projects. That way, funding becomes available here at the city of Laredo, or we, the consultant, are able to find, grant or earmark money for the city of Laredo. Perhaps they would consider these projects to be funded. So we've divvied up these projects into short, mid, and long-term projects, kind of, based on if there's some quick wins out there, project development, how long perhaps coordination would take to develop these projects. But I'll pass it over to Sid to give you a little bit more detail on some of these projects. Sid.
Thank you. A lot of good questions about World Trade, about expanding things here, expanding things there. That's what we tried to identify as part of this report that we submitted. These are some of the projects that we think that will help improve the throughput and better utilize both of the two bridges that we're proposing now. A little bit, just, Melissa had those graphs about all the Port Laredo. Port Laredo World Trade is the biggest chunk, but the second chunk is Columbia. And we have focused a lot of effort on commercial traffic, but Columbia is different than World Trade. We do have non-commercial traffic, we have potential for more buses, so we had to keep that in mind in our thinking. So I just wanted to put that out there, and also World Trade is the gorilla in the room. Everybody, since I've been coming to Laredo in 1993, everybody said, oh, that little bridge out there in Columbia, that's not utilized. Well, Columbia today is number 3 on the southern border. It's not that little underutilized bridge that people talk about. It's above most of the others in Texas. And I think there's only maybe the one in California is number 2. And it's growing. And Columbia does have the potential with the La Gloria Highway being built. That's something that I remember from decades ago that was going to happen and it was going to make everything worthwhile. Well, now I think it's happening. It's been built and it's imminently going to be open. So that's a vital thing on the Mexican side that I think that's going to really cause Columbia to grow. And so what we were trying to do with this anticipated complementary projects was think about, okay, what other things can be done here, there, throughout the port to increase throughput, both northbound and southbound. And this particular picture shows all of them. We've grouped them into 3 categories: short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Short-term, 2 to 5 years. Mid-term, 3 to 10 years. Long-term, longer than that. Oop, went the wrong way, sorry. Short-term, we have 3 projects identified. One of them is very low-hanging fruit. We talked about fast UCP lanes. Well, right now, there's 2 fast lanes in existence in the 8 commercial lanes. Well, they can only use one because they've had to dedicate one of the booths for the UCP inspector, and the other booth is the fast inspector. So trucks come up to where the fast inspector is, they have to stop, the driver has to get down, go over to the other booth. That paperwork has to be processed by UCP, then he goes back and gets in the truck. CBP actually has one other unmanned booth out in front. So in our discussions with CBP, we thought, well, a very short-term, quick project that could be implemented is to put 2 better, a little bit more elaborate booths in place in front of the fast booths now, so that they can be in line and we can open up and use 2 fast lanes instead of just one, because one of them's shut down now because of the processing. So that's number 1. Another project that can be very quickly implemented is removal of the bat cave here at Columbia. That one also is not being used for its original purpose. It's in the way, and that will allow for more queuing space to be in advance of the exit booths that are there. And one other request from CBP was to construct a new exit booth that will allow traffic that's being inspected at the dock, rather than having to go all the way around and come all the way down here and turn and go back up this way, that they can actually send officers over here and release trucks from this area of the dock directly on to 255. So they won't have to mix anymore. So these are some short-term projects, very small. These will be, in the case, I would consider them small DAP projects. They could be implemented together. They could be implemented individually. My recommendation would be to do this one first, where we do something about the UCP. But as mentioned, as Melissa mentioned, they're not funded. So we'll have to look for funding for those. Those are what we considered short-term projects. We think there's big improvement of throughput possible with those.
Is there a price tag on that?
I think we have it, but we didn't.
Yeah, we do have those estimates, Mr. Dominguez, and I can get those to you.
Yeah, we just didn't show them here. There are very rough estimates, but we do have a price, a general guideline, so that the city knows how to go forward with the planning for that as well, what to look for.
In the study that we delivered to the city of Laredo, we included the breakdown of those cost estimates per project.
Right. So there's a number out there to use.
And this, if I may.
Yes.
This is in coincide with the expansion of the bridge, or can pretty much.
These can be ongoing simultaneously. They're not tied to it.
Right. We
We've
can
kept,
start these now.
we've kept the bridge permit and the bridge process separate. We intend to get those 2
Would it
bridges
help it
built.
now without the expansion, or the expansion has to be done in order for this to work?
For these here, these can be done today. They can complement what's out there today.
Yeah.
They can improve throughput today.
Well, if there's gonna be more efficiency, is there a way that we could kind of try to fast track it at the same time that we're doing it, which I know that you're presenting it now, but with the cost and to try to lobby for that?
That's why we need the amount.
That's why you're seeing it.
What are we gonna lobby for?
Well,
Yeah.
the costs are, you know,
Yeah, we believe that these particular ones are not tied at all to the bridge expansion. The bridge expansion is separate. These can be done and will complement and improve throughput at the port as it exists today.
today, okay.
Just one comment, that you didn't mention the non-intrusive inspection MEPs that are already online and being used. One of the earlier diagrams where that traffic starts to build up, they're already using that technology. I've been in that control tower, that little building right there, and, yeah, they get to see both the e-manifest data, truck data, along with the multi-energy scans, X-ray scans of all trucks that are coming through.
Right.
Today.
They're
In fact, they were
located,
online, they were the first ones to put it
they're
on.
located up in this area. There's two
Correct.
units. There's a double unit there, one double unit there. And, then 2 bypass lanes on those. So they're operational. I think those are kind of the test bed for the MEPs here in Laredo.
They have been.
And I think they're still working on them, but they seem to be working a lot better now than 6 months ago.
So looking at both timelines, back to the expansion, you won't have both bridges being constructed at the same time. You'll finish World Trade and then start,
That's simply a function of the fact that we started on this project
Yep.
much later.
yeah, no.
It can be built at the same
Right.
time. It's just physically, we're starting on World Trade. We're focusing on getting that built and operational. And we started working on the permit for that, you know, we were hired in 2019, so we've been working on that. We built the fast lane in the meantime, so.
Yeah,
That's the only reason they're separated. They're as
Right.
fast as they can be both individually.
On this project, we just started this summer.
Yeah. So we did our presidential permit application in less than 3 months. So,
If I may again, is there an immediate need to get this short-term project off the ground now to benefit? Of course, it's gonna benefit, but is it a real need to be done now?
I guess it depends on what is considered a need. The port is operational, traffic does back up onto the bridge. Any improvement to the throughput, during the peak hours, I think would be beneficial. I hate to use the term need because I'm not sure what everybody would consider a need, but it will be beneficial, it will improve throughput, especially in the peak hours.
Can I?
Yes.
Can I break before Mr. Esparza leaves? Mr. Esparza, can we add this to the bond referendum? The needs?
The bond referendum is addressing the tax supported.
And so, véngase para acá, before you.
yeah.
Jesus Esparza with the Budget Department, City of Laredo. The bond referendum is affecting the debt service, the property taxes that is paid through general fund, not the enterprise funds, bridge, utilities, or.
This is considered an enterprise fund,
That is correct.
so it cannot, is your answer.
Yes, we're focusing on the general fund because that's where we're gonna be paying the bond referendum for the items the items that we're considering.
Thank you. Just a question. Thank you, sorry. He
Oh,
was
that's a good
ready to
question.
leave.
That's a
He was grabbing all his
Separate
stuff.
pot, separate
Yeah,
pot, yeah.
Yeah, but we're looking for money now.
Right. And these are not large projects. These are not, you know, $28 million, $30 million projects. These are maybe, I don't know, anywhere from $3 to $5 million,
Right.
most of them. So I mean, I know that sounds like a lot of money. $3 to $5 million is a lot of money to me personally, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a smaller.
To give you an idea, so when Sid and myself and Bata went out with CPP, the first visit we did with them to look at some of these, you know, their wish list. I'll tell you, the first project that they showed us was the UCP, you know, the co-location with Anam, and how that's taking up a lane. And if we could just build them a separate toll booth for the Anam person to be in, they can open up another lane. That's $1 million. I know it seems like a lot, but, you know, think about what we're gaining in terms of the throughput through that lane. It
I guess-
doesn't seem like a very large investment.
Yeah, I guess to Mr. Quigg's point is, I guess we can work on that with city to see if we can have that already in place by the time you guys
Precisely.
already start.
Certainly.
Since it's low hanging fruit.
Absolutely. And all of these are what we consider, they're there, CBP showed them to us, they're available, that's why we put them in the short-term range, so that they can be worked on separately, independently, they don't require any special permitting. It will be DAP projects, but that can be dealt with. We know how the city's worked several, one big DAP project was a fast lane, so the process is there. The city staff knows how to deal with it. LJA, the team, it already has, we've already talked to the DAP team about the big project, which is the bridge, so, it's out there.
My last question, I promise. My promise, I'm already acting like Arturo. Do you have a projection that if this was done on the efficiency on the short-term project that's needed, when will we get it? What is the possible payback for it in order to sell it to the city and get it done immediately? Or for us to be able to,
The cost benefit of
We
it.
cost
haven't gone
benefit
to
and
that
how long
level.
would the projection take to
We
get that
haven't gone to
investment
that
paid?
level of detail yet. It's, we, as Melissa mentioned, we've been working only since the end of June. So, our goal was to,
That's it? I'm joking.
we're not quite miracle workers, but we were doing a president's permit at the same time, and
Okay.
trying to find all these
Sure.
things out at the same time, so we've been extremely busy. We have not gone to that level, to be able to put, dollars and cents to cost benefit type
Benefit
ratio.
analysis.
Yeah, to do that analysis.
Okay.
But I would think it could be done fairly easily. We did provide some costs, and one of the reasons that it may sound like a lot for a booth or two booths, we figured we would plan it per regular CBP primary booth requirements. So it's got bullet-resistant glazing, it's got bullet-resistant paneling in it, it's sitting up high, it has all the things that we build, like we built the fast lane. It's a similar booth, but it's much smaller on a separate foundation.
If we don't have any more questions, I know we have,
Say, how big is the property, the Columbia property? How big is it?
Overall, it's over 100 acres, but about 75 on the commercial side, I believe.
So there's only like 25 left?
Well, there's 25 is probably city property on the other side. The city toll facility, there's a water treatment plant up there, some other things. I think the feds only take up about 75 total acres.
So there's there's room for building something additional there? Yeah.
Well, if I've got a few minutes more, we're trying to do some other things too.
I thought you were finished. I thought, because he said any more questions.
Well,
We just have a couple more.
I just have a couple.
no, yeah, we have some city employees that we wanna get home also.
Okay. One of the other, this slide and this part, these two projects are kind of together right now. High, wide, and heavy loads come down through here. They come across the Caliche Road. They go out. They come through every day. We proposing to build a fast lane in a brand new high, wide, and heavy load lane in between the toll plaza and the federal POV area. This is a middle-term project, and we would build at least 4 fast lane primaries, but we'd have a extra wide load bypass here, so all the high, wide, heavy loads that come through today can still be passed. They can be lined up through here, be inspected, probably 20 or 25 of them at a time maybe. They would go directly on a 255. Same thing for the fast. Fast would be designed without exit boosts, go right on the 255. And then in association with that, we need to do some things to 255, adding lanes here before it gets to the BSIF, we also show adding some exit lanes here. And talking about that earlier at World Trade, we believe there's options to add at least 1 or 2 additional exit boosts here to increase throughput. And then long-term is potentially increasing the POV, increasing POV first in the middle. Right now, there's a monument here, and the 4 lanes are out here for primary. Open this up, put some primary boosts in here. Second, that we can add commercial capacity here. We believe it's better on the inside for the primaries. Turn, we could, we can add more paving here, we can do a lot of things. And then lastly, we can add more POV or bus, capacity under the existing port, under the existing canopy adjacent to the admin building between the current secondary. And so those are some long-term things for non-commercial, the non-commercial side, plus also primary commercial. And then we put a schedule together, but this is all dependent on funding, so please don't take that schedule to heart.
I'll take a picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One question, Sid, in the last binational meeting, was this reported there? No?
We were going to make our first presentation to Columbia at the last binational that got canceled.
Oh, the meeting got canceled?
September, it was supposed to happen at the end of August, it got pushed to September, and then the binational discussion got canceled by the President of Mexico, and we did not have it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
To the next item for discussion. Discussion with possible action of establishment of a public-private partnership to secure industry funding, air quality mitigation fund for air quality mitigation initiatives, including but not limited to tree planting and enhanced air quality monitoring.
Chairman, I got a text message from Dr. Chamberlain. He had another commitment, was not able to join us tonight. And then he had a staff member that was on his way over here to attend the meeting. However, issues came up and that person is not able to join us as well. So if I can ask anybody in the audience, is anybody else here in regards to item number 3?
Good evening, Chairman and members. My name is Elsa Hinojosa from Building Development Services.
Paula Lozano with the City of Laredo Building Department, your building official. We're here to do a little presentation on, this is gonna be piggybacking off of the, Dr. Chamberlain's, presentation, but basically, the enforcement of the tree planting and to give you what we are doing based on the, city council's, directive. So basically, building department looks at whenever they come and develop, you need to put a certain amount of trees. And, there's an enforcement section of there's a division in our building, to enforce, they go out there. So basically, this ordinance came into play in '94. So any warehouse or industrial, because everything needs the trees, right? Whether it's commercial, residential, or whatever, but right now, what we're trying to enforce, and this is piggybacking off of that mitigation for the air quality, because of that study saying that tree canopy helps mitigate the air quality. So our part is the enforcement of proper tree, that the ordinance has been there since '94. So what we are, our enforcement is basically, calculate how many number of trees is, the ordinance says for every 30 feet of roadway, you need to put at least 1 tree, and it also gives you, and for 1 tree, 4 shrubs. We basically, there's places like that don't have any trees, right? And so we're going out there, we've identified originally 4,000, well, we went from 2,000 properties, and then we lowered them down because some of them aren't developed. So we lowered them down to 1,000 something, and we're starting to do an initiative to start enforcing.
Question.
Yes.
This is a 1994 initiative, or ordinance? and it's barely starting to get 20, 30 years later enforced?
So keep in mind that,
30 years
I
later.
know it sounds, keep in mind that it was very, we were looking at it at the time of issuing a building permit. And so building was enforcing, when you build it, this is what you need. There is a section of it that says if it dies, you have to replant it. That wasn't a building permit, right? You don't need a building permit to put a tree. So it wasn't coming through us. So there was a little, I guess you could say, gaps in the ordinance and things like that. The ordinance did get, there is a section where if you need 10 trees, they allow you to have, half of them you don't have to plant, but they give you money in lieu of options. So we are looking into trying to maybe, we're talking about it, but it would need to become from city council to see if we could want to change this. And all our presentation is doing is
Right.
saying what currently is on the ordinance, what is building doing as far as the enforcement to help mitigate, but until it's changed, we would need to direct it, but I'm open to any questions that you guys.
Just
have.
real quick,
Yes, sir.
this really needs to be looked into again, because, making people planting trees and stuff, I'm for beautification, there's no doubt. But when we have a water crisis and all those other things that are going on, this thing is outdated and this needs to be honestly looked into before it's actually brought back, in my opinion, because of the water rations right now that we have everywhere. And then to be planting trees everywhere, we're just gonna run into another problem. Unless you plant cactus, but that's what they do in Arizona and all those other places, but I don't see it as something that is
So, when we first started this, it's all spawned off of the air quality, the air monitors. When we first started on this project, if you can go back to the first picture with all the green stuff. The water issue was somewhere in the back, but now it's in the forefront, right? So now we're tasked with, we want more trees and we want more green, but we have an issue with the water. I think that our task here is, moving forward, is for every warehouse that is going to be built to look like this. This is a Fasken property. And I know that every Fasken property on Embarcadero looks just like this and it's beautiful. But go to the other warehouse. The other one? Hold on. Majority of our warehouses look like this. So I think the recommendation for the tree beautification planning that was asked for a mitigation fund was more along the lines of, hey, you as industry, you guys should pitch in and do this right now, as it is. And wait, so I'm just saying this for the record, it has really nothing to do with you, but I think that it's more of, in the future, moving forward, all warehouses should be made to look like that first warehouse, with all the greenery and all the trees. We kill two birds with one stone. We don't live in a cement city. And at the same time, try to find a way for industrial parks to include, you already include in your ordinance that you have to have X amount of trees and X amount of green and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Now it's, hey, now we need to add something more above and beyond, which is that plus parking. Additional parking for those industrial parks. Because we have another issue that is spawned off, that we have trucks at HEB, trucks at Walmart, trucks in my neighborhood, trucks everywhere. And we've never really, it's a white elephant in the room. Yes, we love trade, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we have what we need to be able to be successful.
Right.
And along with green, I'd like for it to be including parking for industrial parks, for that industrial park, and each industrial park have an X amount of property that is allocated for green space, green belts, and the parking into that green belt. I'm sorry, you had a question.
This is an 80 warehouse.
Yes.
This is before your city ordinance.
Right.
What you have to look at, the document that came after your ordinance is the comp plan. And the comp plan talks about saving water. And this doesn't look like a saving water territory. You would have to put something nicer, which is artificial turf.
Right.
Which looks much better than that, and we can save water so this city can grow a little bit more. Because if not, we're not gonna grow. That's what the comp plan, and those are experts. The ones that they brought for the comp plan are experts. Not just a city ordinance that you need to put a tree
Okay.
and that's it.
And if I
let
may-
me just say this real quick, you know, the comp plan is not enforceable, it's a plan. Until the
plan
recode,
was-
the recode is the enforceable, right now it's the land development code that still needs to get. So we're still, the land development code is the law, it's the ordinance, it's the, all that, and that needs to be, that is in the mix of trying to get redone, so there's a lot of moving parts there.
It
And
doesn't,
when that land development code was done, I mean, I'm saying 94 ordinance, right? And then the parking ordinance was 1990. And the number of trees equate to, how much linear feet, how many parking spaces you have. So all that was before we're a industrial city, industrial warehouse city. And so it does need to be revamped.
The
I
comp plan was
do agree
adopted.
with you.
the comp plan was adopted by city council. It's
Correct.
not just a document. It was adopted.
Oh, no, I don't mean that, it was adopted by city, of course, but it's a document that's a plan, it's not,
Unfortunately, I totally agree with you, but unfortunately,
But it
the plan has fallen to the wayside when it comes to using it as a roadmap to a better city.
Yeah, if I
so,
may,
but the city is
Unfortunately.
trying to, get the recode, getting it done, and there's still some things to be ironed out, but once it does, the code is the enforceable document as far as whatever you're gonna develop,
but,
right? Whether it's a house.
Understood, but if
Yes.
I may, so that way, because we could continue
Going back and
going
forth.
and going and going. Back then, the cost per square foot was very different on a warehouse. Today, you can't, there's not enough room to be putting landscaping and all those things, which I'm all for, but prices per acre from 375 to 425 today, I don't think they're gonna wanna put, you know, a quarter of it for landscaping, and then plus with a water issue. These things are really outdated, and we really need to do something immediately. As far as the, you know, grass and all, people are putting artificial grass already now in their homes. That's the new thing that's going on because of the water ration, because of what's going on. But also consider for these people that put in a big investment is the cost per square foot that they have to put their property on, plus have their trucks, so that they're not in the city, and then adding more landscaping is not gonna help the cause.
So to revamp, in response, we would like to have town hall meetings, the people that are getting affected, to have their input, so that we can properly present to council a revised version of what is the industry needs, what is the city needs, so that we can bring it back together and have council, what is it that you want, this is a recommendation, and so until we get all that information, we do recognize that it does need to be looked at, and, I mean.
Don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
No, well,
So what
my
is,
message was, what are we doing right now in
Right.
light of the air quality? It was supposed to be a sub-presentation.
what timeline do you have for all those projects before you propose something to city council?
Well, right now, the only directive we have from city council is to enforce current, right? I mean, I don't have,
So how are you enforcing that? You're going back to the warehouses and telling them, hey, you don't have enough trees?
Yeah,
We
that's
already
where.
started, last week on Friday, enforcing this, sending out with the minimum, code enforcement officer that we have in an effort, to address this together with community development and code enforcement inspectors, as well as environmental or zoning division. We're targeting, 1,000+ warehouses, existing and new ones. It went from 4,000 to 1,200 due to that there were,
Some of them were
Grandfathered in.
before.
correct. So what we're doing, staff is going, maybe doing 10 per department, visiting this, warehouses. And, not only, calculating the linear feet, I know we have a slide there on how to calculate it, and telling them you need so many trees, you know? And also Parks is there along to assist, and they're part also of this, effort. When it comes to the money and when they can explain more, let's say they need to put 44 trees. And due to the water conservation as well, we wanna work with them. Maybe they say, okay, out of this 44, work with us 50%. We'll plant 50%, but we'll pay $500 per tree money in lieu in order not to plant all of those because of the spacing, because there's not enough space, because everything's concrete. So we're trying to work with them instead of just citing them. And let's be honest, some of them say, oh, cite me, I'd rather pay the $500 than invest thousands of dollars on trees, you know? But we're trying to work with them and having them provide a plan of action to work together, because imagine planting 44 trees.
How is
Yeah,
that,
on the
how's that enforcement going?
So,
If we
on
can,
the
if we can, hold on a
enforcement-
second, if you wanna jump in right here, right now is the perfect time to jump in. Yeah, yes.
On the enforcement side, right, so we realize that the current ordinance may not meet the needs, and so how are we gonna make them comply? I mean, I don't have endless amount of inspectors to go out there, we got other stuff also, right? So, even if we try to enforce, it's like, is it gonna be effective? We prefer it to be voluntarily, right? You know, hey, by the way, you need trees, you know, hey, plant your trees, and oh, yes, sir, and it's done.
Yeah,
And then
and
the
just,
reality is.
this is Christmas trees. So just for the record, Councilwoman Vanessa Perez has joined us.
Sorry to interrupt. We just wanna make sure we provide council a report. This is what we're doing. This is how many we'll target it in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This is the effort we're trying to do, and this is the outcome. So is it working? Is it not working?
Have data,
So,
so that we can come back.
so this is important. I mean, again, going back to the streets, because they want a lot of money to pave all the streets. But just between Sada and Mines Road, kill them. And we told Mr. Orfila, you worked on it every weekend, you're working on that street, pre-paving it and putting patches in it. And he says, well, look at all the sprinkler systems that are on those warehouses. So the water does affect the streets as well. So we gotta be a little bit more cognizant of what we do, because
Got a motion and a second to extend time, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Do we need a time?
30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
just an
Yeah,
observation.
so literally minutes before today's meeting, I was on a call with the councilman and that I represent, and I was told that a early 1990s ordinance was finally being enforced, and that was I didn't believe it. Now I believe it, but I can't believe that we've gone that long without enforcing it. And it just seems like everywhere that we turn, there's a can being kicked up the damn road that here's another one.
Well, the 1990 Amsterdam is for the industrial parking lot, and we've been addressing that. We're working on an ordinance specifically for industrial parking lot. The tree central ordinance enforcement is from 1994, but that we're really addressing and enforcing it.
But even to enforce it right now, I think it really needs to be looked into again because of the cost of what square foot is today in warehousing and property. Our issues with water, even at our bank, we can't water and our shrubs are drying up. So I'd hate for somebody to spend money, especially our taxpayer money, to help out the private sector to put a tree and it's not gonna last.
Yeah, so just, Stanley, you're coming up to say something, or for Parks?
Our support with regard to the tree ordinance, and so we do look at certain trees. We are conscious of the fact that some trees are more prevalent in this area, and then ways to water them. And so, drought resistant, and so we look at the plans. And so we recommend certain trees that are native to Laredo. And
Oh,
so
good.
we're cognizant of all of that, as well as methods, as I said, to watering them. We don't want sprinklers. We don't want the water going on the street. There's drip systems. There's bubblers, thank you. There's bubblers. And so there's ways to water a tree, and it doesn't have to be a huge oak tree or something, or saltpeter, whatever they call that, just eats the water. So
And we
we're
do
very aware
provide
of
this
that.
information
Right.
to the customers. We give them options, recommendations.
With
Can
a
you go
warning
back
or
to
with
that,
a
can you
citation?
go back to the form that you were showing? That one right there.
Yeah, this is the flyer, we tell them where the sections of it, where it's required, and we issue a warning, and if 30 days later they still don't do anything, we'll go on into a citation. Again, but, 1,000 properties, enforcement of it. How effective is this enforcement going to get compliance? And so that data we need to accumulate so that we can provide a better plan of action to, if this does become an issue moving forward, how do we address it so that it is in compliance? Do we need to adapt to it? And obviously, the opinions are we do, so how, right? So that we can, meet it and.
You said this is 2 weeks ago. What popped, who
Again-
thought, or who dug, or where did,
Okay,
why did
again,
this spawn off?
this is a directive from council, again, and this was supposed to be from building a sub-presentation to Dr. Chamberlain's air quality monitoring presentation. And the directive was from council that a tree canopy helps mitigates. And where are we on the actual enforcement? So again, buildings, part of it was, well, when they come to build, we ask for it, right? But if it dies, and so that was where's the enforcement? And so the ordinance is kinda very, I don't wanna say quiet on it, but there's not really too much enforcement other than you have to, well, who's going to enforce it, how to enforce it? We need to establish a process from the, city side of it, right?
I don't understand how there's not a process in place if there's an ordinance in place. If there's an ordinance in place, there should be a process in place. They just made an ordinance and nobody moved on it, I guess? Like, nobody decided, okay, this is how it's gonna work, they just said, okay, there's an ordinance now, and that's it?
Of course, again, 94,
I know.
Well,
So,
if I could.
yes,
Well, an ordinance is only as good as its enforcement.
Right.
Right, so, but aside from that, I know that, I got here late, so I'm not exactly 100% sure on what we're talking about exactly, but as far as tree canopies and trees on commercial lots, industrial lots, I know we modified the money in lieu of ordinance my first year on council.
Your first, probably your
2021.
first or second.
I think there was an ordinance for that. And then, I will say that there was some leniency on the tree requirements for industrial lots with that modification of that ordinance. But what we saw when we had the boil water notice in 2021, I believe, when I came in, or right before I came in, we had that issue with the degrading of the water quality because it was sitting in the lines for too long, and then we became aware of the looping issue that we have where the water becomes stagnant. So if the industrial parks, which a lot of them are like the dead end for the lines, if they're not watering, then the water degrades faster. And that was contributing to the issue that we had. So it's like a double-edged sword, because if you say, well, you don't have to have landscaping in your industrial lot, then that means you're not gonna use as much water, especially on the weekends or when you're closed. And that water's gonna sit there because it has no way to loop back into the system. So by the time you come in on Monday and you turn on the faucet, the quality of that water is not as good because it's been sitting for a couple days with the chlorine breaking down and it's not moving. So that's kind of the double-edged sword here on the not having, the water being used for like landscaping purposes and stuff
And the
like that.
conserving of water,
Yeah,
and the conserve, so the city could grow, that was the comp plan, that's part of the comp plan, remember?
it is, it's for conservation, but again, when you're conserving and you're not using the water, it's sitting in the lines longer, and that's when we have to go out and flush the water.
That's what I'm saying, is it wasn't, it doesn't coincide, it's not, it doesn't work together.
No,
It
some of our-
contradicts each other.
Yeah, and so, you know, we do have a lot of ordinances that are not being enforced, unfortunately.
One says not to throw water, and the other one says grow more trees and put more water in it. That's basically what it's saying. But then again, we would love to see the list, your tree list.
It's already in the land development code, it's in the appendix F, it tells you what trees, it should be, right?
Well, they can give us a list, we don't have to go and.
Sure.
So,
Quick question, you said that this is also including, our next item for discussion, the truck parking? Or does this not include anything? Your ordinance does not have anything to do with parking? It's just
Well,
trees?
they have I know, Mr. Kent had some questions, on the truck parking development, depends what kind of development they use, you know, what is it gonna be used for?
So when it comes
We can help, we
to
can
building.
We'll go ahead and merge those, we'll go ahead and merge those two items so that we can,
So whenever you do a private parking lot, cause, then, the industrial parking ordinance of 2021 did allow, cause before it was, you either put asphalt or concrete. Now it's allowing millings, caliche, so as long as you have, so it doesn't have a financial impact on just having all this, parking requirements. So that ordinance is a little more lenient to allow different options. You know, obviously, if you're gonna have a caliche parking lot, you're gonna have a little more maintenance, you know, because of the traffic. So what we do not want is for debris to be spilling onto the public right of way. Because then we would be, not in compliance with state regulations as far as erosion. So that really is in that ordinance, so, but it does allow for that. This item is for public and private parking lots that, I'd imagine it would be the same requirements, right? Because we look at it as a parking lot.
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be, I don't see anything being or public about it, because it's gonna be paid by a private entity that's gonna be doing it, unless there's gonna be funds that are gonna be shared with the developers, which I don't think that the city's gonna do, you know, give them X amount of funding for.
So there's been talks that maybe the city may want to have city property to do that public, but I don't know if that's gonna have any traction on it, but, the way this building looks at it, it would be, it's a parking lot.
Well, you know, in observance of time, and I know everybody's here, I think you mentioned that you wanted to have, public meetings and input.
We would like the input of obviously the industry, how it affects them, what it is, so that we could know what are the needs, right? You know, there's different interpretations on how many trees you need. Is the extra truck parking gonna be counted for trees? And because the formula says how many linear feet every 30 feet plus parking, right? So is that customer parking, is that employee parking, or is that truck parking?
When you say
We
parking,
need to clean it out.
when you say parking, you mean like parking per warehouse, right? Or if I'm a new developer that's bringing in a new plan for an industrial park, are you adding additional parking aside from the warehouse and car parking for every
No,
individual
I'm talking
warehouse?
about the trees. The trees is based on parking stalls.
The
So
individual
that-
warehouse parking,
Right,
okay.
so how many trees, or how many linear feet you have of frontage road, plus how many parking spots do you have?
Yeah, okay.
So then it kind of combines it, and so it may work for maybe an HEB or Walmart or something, but it may not work for industrial park. So that's what we need to kind of look back on it. So does it make sense the way it is? So, and so we might need to tweak it, so.
And the other thing is it trailer parking or is it
It's
office
vague.
parking? You know,
It's vague.
it's.
And so we want to present those to council and say, how do we want to approach this, right? So, but until we have that meetings with, the people that are getting affected, so we want to bring that data back to council, right? So, until we have those
Yeah,
meetings.
so I guess, I mean, there's really no action for us to take, except please invite us to when you do have those, so that we can be part of that, because eventually this is gonna come up, I mean, for you guys to take action and.
Well, that's what they're here for, that.
No, I know,
that
but I
they
mean,
notice.
but yeah, so, I do, until 20 minutes before this meeting, I didn't know there was a 1990s ordinance, but, so, yeah, yes.
Mr. Lozano and Ms. Hinojosa, do you have a timeline as to when you will be presenting this to council? Your findings and things?
Yeah, I think I asked that earlier and it wasn't answered.
Again, our directive right now from council is to enforce the current ordinance as far as the trees, right? In light of this, air quality mitigation, right now, if you develop, we're gonna ask for what the ordinance says. We would need to move forward. I mean, we could have a meeting, I mean, it needs to be directed. I don't make the decisions, I'm just trying to follow through.
So any building built before 1994?
It does not have to
Doesn't
comply
apply.
with this ordinance, that's right.
Sorry to interrupt. If it's for the industrial parking lot, we have an ordinance amendment on the works. for
You have a
that.
what?
We have an ordinance amendment that we're working on for the industrial parking lot issues, we do. But as for the trees and shrubs ordinance, that's a different one, that's the one from 1994. That's the one we're enforcing right now, it's for a council directive. They didn't say, it's a priority, but we're working on it. But for the industrial parking lot, we're working on that, ordinance amendment. And I know, Councilwoman Perez, you have brought it up previously with previous, management from Building Development and Services. We provide a monthly report to management, in regards to the industrial parking lot.
Yeah, just, if I may, I don't remember discussing at council that we were gonna, make the tree enforcement a priority over
No,
the parking. And,
Correct.
and I can tell you that I've been going back and forth with TxDOT about the rocks on the road. And I have a lot of constituents that complain about rocks hitting their windshields. And there's rocks, and I've talked to TxDOT about sweeping Mines Road more often, and then they just go back and say, well, you guys have a lot of parking lots with dirt, and you have trucks on them, and you're not doing anything about your ordinance to not. That was what I thought the directive was for your all to enforce, not so much the trees. When did we talk about trees
It was,
recently?
sometime in September 16, it was, something that Councilwoman Melissa Silva brought up, if we could, try to,
But was it a council vote that all of council voted to, for that to be the directive? I don't remember
it was
that vote.
a staff report, a staff report. Yeah,
It
so,
was directed from council.
but it's not a priority that we are working on the industrial parking ordinance aside from that. They did mention it's not a priority, but start looking into it, enforcing the trees and
I know,
shrubs
but
ordinance.
to me, this is like,
There
I'm
was
just,
two directives. One directive was for the parking, that was way before. So we're still enforcing that. We're still making sure, hey, parking lot, you need to make sure that you.
well, I can
say that there are specific lots in Mines Road that have not been, remedied, the issue.
and now we're moving on to trees. And
That was another directive.
I don't recall that vote, but I'm not saying we didn't have it, I just don't remember us all agreeing as a council that we were gonna go after the trees. But I think that, it would be helpful for council to decide what the priorities are for your
Yes.
department.
And then to answer your question,
If you can possibly, I don't see anybody from management here, but I think it would be helpful for us as a council to say what the priorities for your department are, because I can tell you my priority is more addressing the rocks and the debris. So, and I don't know how this.
No,
committee
and we're
feels,
just trying to,
what the priority is.
circling back on this item in reference to air quality mitigation initiatives, we're just trying to see on our end on the enforcement, what we're doing on the tree planting and the enhanced air quality monitoring. We're trying to explain what we do on the back end to enforce.
Yeah, so,
Let me just make a little more point. So the parking enforcement or the tree enforcement, they kind of go hand in hand. And so in this town hall meeting, whatever we want to call it, meetings with it's going to have to be both. I know that there's places where, you can't find enough parking spaces for all the trailers that are in Laredo. And they need to have a proper parking.
right, so,
So it's gonna have to be.
going back to a previous comment of mine, Councilwoman, was if you're enforcing that new construction and new development have green space, then you can also enforce that they have proper parking for industrial parks when they're developed.
That is being done. Is that?
I don't see any industrial parks, new industrial parks with additional parking lots for external trucks. Like, if a truck gets here and they're waiting to go deliver at XYZ industrial park, they go to HEB, they go to Walmart, and they wait there. What I'm talking about is a parking lot for that specific industrial park, for that truck to show up and wait there and then deliver in the morning. That's
Why
what
would
I'm
they want to, they don't want to go there, they want to go to the HEB, they want to go to the truck stop, they want to shower, and they're going to be there for 8 hours, maybe for 2 or 3 hours. So it has to be something that's attractive to the driver.
Well, what we're trying to do is get the trucks out of our neighborhoods and areas where they're not supposed to be, and along 35 easements and side roads and everything. So I think there has to be a point where you start somewhere, that industrial parks have its own parking space.
Buffer.
So, yeah, this isn't something that we're gonna fix right now or anything, but it is something that we should bring up and talk about in these town hall meetings. I think that's pretty much, there's nothing else that we can pretty much mitigate or do anything about right now at this time.
Well, if I may.
Yes.
I think the public-private partnership for the parking came up during a meeting with the Texas Trucking Association. And I don't see anybody from LMCA here. I know they're having an event tonight, but, there was an offer by some of their membership to invest in, truck parking. And I think that's where we need that information to go along with this item, because there's an interest there, but this is, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
We
that.
understand the needs that
Yeah,
you guys need.
I think that this item has overflown the scope of this committee.
Right.
Because there's so many more moving parts that need to be part of it, the industry, the city, the different departments within the city, that, I'm just gonna go ahead and move to, excuse me? That is item 4 is parking, so we combined everything together. Yeah, we combined everything together. Well, any last questions?
The reason is, those tractors that are roaming around Mines Road, especially Mines Road, that they park at the Popeyes and you name it, they're all over the place. Like if it was a regular car, that thing weighs 12,000 pounds. And so it's damaging our roads. And so that's what we're asking for, those parkings. And I spoke to Mr. Maldonado yesterday. I said, he has an event, he's not here, but he was gonna talk to his members, but what we're looking for is for them to catch an Uber or a taxi or something to get to the HEB or wherever he has to go. They don't have an actual, facility
Yeah,
here,
remember
local
his-
facility. They don't pay taxes, they just come here, they get a load and they leave. And so they're making money, but they're not leaving much here.
LMCA has their local members. A lot of people that come are from.
See, those are the ones that are
10,000
roaming
trucks that
around.
Are out of state.
And it's
out of
just
city.
more traffic in Mines Road that we need to park them. And if they need to go to the HEB, they can grab an Uber, taxi, or whatever, and so they can get there. And if you put those, food trucks around that parking area, because they'll have.
Yeah, and something that you just said right now, an ordinance, or the councilwoman said, an ordinance is only as good as its enforcement. So along with creating a parking area, the law enforcement has to enforce that there are no trucks driving in certain areas after certain times or, so.
It is important.
It is very important. So, if we can move ahead, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll hope to hear from you soon through, Mr. Richards.
Thank you.
And, last item is bridge staff report.
10 minutes.
Good evening again. Talking about U-turns, you can see we had a small increase for the month of October. Going back September, World Trade Bridge had 134 U-turns. October, we have 176. That still equates to an average about 6 per day, which is not as much as we had way back in February of 2022 when we hit like 575 U-turns that month. So we continue doing a strong push with our front office as well as Miss Elizabeth Estrada's staff, making sure we're getting more and more companies on the auto replenish. We're temporarily suspending their account for the repeat offenders, so we can get them to come in and set up their accounts, put it on auto replenish with a credit card. And so we have continued doing that on a daily basis to push on that to try and get these numbers down as low as possible. As you can see, for the month of October, we only had 2 accounts that had 6 U-turns. The majority of everybody, the 109 accounts, had 1 U-turn. So, and months past, when we started way back, even in 2021, we've had some accounts that had 13, 14, 15 U-turns. So that number is going down tremendously, and we will continue having staff work on this to get these numbers down. And
These funds that are going in there, does this go straight to the general fund?
I don't have that answer. Do you have that answer, Ms. Estrada?
Councilwoman, maybe you know?
I haven't seen it.
Or maybe the finance guy might know.
That's she's finance for.
Oh, I thought, okay.
Yeah, Elizabeth Estrada Bridge System. The NSF fees go straight into the bridge fund.
Oh, bridge fund. Into
Yes,
the bridge
those
fund.
are
Okay, good.
collections for us.
Well, let me take it. Hold
No,
it right there.
It's an enterprise, it's an enterprise fund.
It's an
just for them.
enterprise fund.
Yeah, but we get half, the general fund gets half of what's left over.
Of toll revenues.
Right.
This isn't toll
Only
revenue.
toll revenues.
This
This is
isn't
like
toll
an
revenue.
accessory, and it won't go into.
This isn't toll revenue.
So you don't share this to the general fund because it's not a toll revenue?
Exactly.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yes. It's
So
part
what-
of our
so
fees and collections.
we have
not our
500
revenue.
So we have $500,000 to work with?
I think there's a lot of smart things you could do with that money.
Thank you.
Well,
I can plant a lot of trees with
I would actually, this committee created this policy, so it didn't
Right.
exist before you all created it, implemented it. And it's just extra money that isn't like accounted for or
But are we saying
projected or
that there's,
budgeted.
are we saying that there's $532,000 in the bank account and for
That's
bridge
from-
that's just sitting there?
No, I think it's more than that, cause
Well,
last
no, it-
year's revenue was close to 700,000, I believe.
Well, the number, I say 500,000 because that's what it's on, that's what
this
it's.
is the revenue amount
since
since we
2020.
implemented
No,
the
this is since it
fines.
started.
This is for fines only.
532,000
Yes.
Yes.
since the fines of 1 year?
No, 3
since
years
the-
ago,
since the
2.5 years
program
ago.
started.
And
We
how long?
implemented and started the
That's
fines.
$250,000 a year.
Yeah, if you guys wanna, make some kind of like motion or recommendation that money be used for some specific purpose for enhancement.
Where does that go? Does that go to you guys to vote on it or what?
General fund.
If you.
No. I mean, if we were to come up with something like that, you guys still have to approve it or do
We
we
will
have
approve
The
final say?
bridge, isn't those the bridge have discretionary for that, for funds used for
We have
the?
discretionary.
It's possible, they're using it, but at the same time, the port of entry is to improve the port of entry, right? And you guys don't really have funding, it would be something definitely that would be worth talking about.
Maybe
As
throwing
maybe
10%
an agenda
for
item.
travel funds for our leaders to go, whenever we go on those trips, you know? that
Oh, like today we talked about the TRZ we're trying to implement to help the port.
Oh, what, I'm sorry?
There's,
The TRZ for like.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, I think there's a lot of minor things we could do that could be low-hanging fruits that we could get for 500, for $500,000.
Something that'll help the industry.
Correct, and it's correct on the
Question.
Or things like getting rid of the back cave that we talked about?
No, that's not part of the bridge, that's part of CBP, is not?
Well,
The
no,
Bat Cave,
I mean,
the Bat Cave, removing the Bat Cave?
that's gonna.
Part of CBP,
Yeah.
but they are requesting us to assist in.
To remove it.
Well, yeah, no, I
Why
mean,
don't we
we remember,
reinvest in
we said we need more booths, we need more of this, more of that, I mean, we could, do like, for anything, you know, for what you were talking about, like getting low-hanging fruit.
Just a question on this.
It may be worth talking about, like, to possibly utilize, I'm not saying I wanna take money away from the bridge, but I'm just saying, if they could
No, that's fine.
No, we have to talk about it first.
That's fine.
decide what to
See what it
spend
is,
it,
what
if you were gonna
it's there,
have
it's
to
one
spend
day
it
for the
anyways,
year,
it would be probably
Doesn't
good
go
for
to
the
general
committee
fund,
to
it's
have
good.
an input on something like that.
We built that, and we could use it for something very, very favorable.
You made reference to the ones on the six, let's say, if they get to two or three, it's the same client. Why don't you just tell them, hey, they can't turn it, they come back. Getting six is kind of excessive, don't you think, or not?
Yeah.
Well, yes, what I'm saying is
More than once a week.
we're suspending their account. That way, when they come back through our lanes,
But I think you should get maybe up to three, you know, you should allow a nominal number, because six is, I mean,
No, but they go through, they can't block them, you block them once they get to the toll. So all you gotta do is you gotta use.
unless they have six continuous trucks.
You
but-
can't, but you can't stop them
You
from
can't
getting
stop
on
them
the,
till it
getting
gets
in the
there.
line, yeah.
Yeah, you can't stop them right there.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, you know what, they're on the third truck, and they're sitting there, hey, man, you don't have any funds, you can't cut across anymore, and you suspend their account, man.
correct. And we're doing that currently, like, to the ones that are having U-turns of 6, 5, and 4. You know, the ones and twos, we're letting them know, hey, you know, you need to try and reduce it. But it's the other ones that are having the multiple, U-turns that we are suspending.
Yeah.
We send them an email, we make a phone call, no response, we suspend their account.
So you were down to two
What
anyways.
happens when you suspend their account? They show up to the toll, and they can't go through.
Right.
Yeah, the
All
same
right.
thing as not having
Motion to
funds.
adjourn, oh.
No, yeah, so we have 5 minutes left.
Right. If I may mention something,
yes. Go ahead.
last year, Mr. Puig, you were stating we have 532,000 that we have since we've implemented it. For the year 2024, that our fiscal year, we collected 224,000 in 2024.
I remember we lifted the amount.
Because we raised the amount of
Raise
money.
the amount.
Right, raised it, and prior to that, we were collecting $50 NSF fee. We have raised it now to $100 NSF fee, plus the cost of $475 per axle on what it would, the crossing cost would be.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes left, and I know it's the end of the year, and so I know that we gotta come up with next time we meet, but, we're, in a month from now, we're gonna be knee-deep into Christmas, the vacation,
January's a good day.
holidays. But I would like to have a special meeting, maybe, you know, to think about this, about something Arturo, Mr. Dominguez just said, you have to have it on the agenda, and I don't want this to be put on the agenda until March, you know, I'd like to put it on the agenda for January, but I'd like for us to get together and have a brainstorming meeting to be able to think of ideas, low-hanging fruit, like Mr. Sid was talking about, Mr. Milky, that we could help.
How can we do a meeting just for that, you mean?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to
What
be,
would you-
it doesn't have to be sanctioned, or it doesn't have to be, I
like
mean.
a workshop.
It has to be a workshop, because if there's more than X amount of us, it's a open meetings act
A
and all that.
workshop is like for one item, no?
Yeah.
Is that for,
Be for as many.
it can be more than one?
Yeah.
We could work it for this item, see
And
what,
again-
we need to get the needs
Just-
of the bridge.
Just,
What,
yeah,
we can't come up and guess, we gotta,
No.
the users, us of course, but the operators.
But then he has to bring it to council, no? You have to, it's not whatever we want.
No, after
well,
we recommend.
they just mentioned that it's not, because it's
We need to
not.
check on it. if it's-
Yeah, we need to check on a lot of things for that,
But
because that's,
the
it's a
idea,
good
we need to
idea.
brainstorm.
The idea to bring something,
I
yeah.
would definitely put as an agenda item for the next meeting in January for you all to talk about.
No, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, it's gonna be on the agenda item.
Hold
So, everybody, look at your calendars. I suggest we do not meet in December, and we meet in, what did you say we have, the third
The
Wednesday
third
of,
Wednesday of the month,
third Wednesday of January?
January 15th?
15th.
that would be January 15th.
Everybody okay with that? All right.
Motion adjourned?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, everybody.